Okay, so this is what our page is going to look like in Notion. We're going to have a simple breakdown of the document itself and a bit of a description, including the purpose for this page to document all our internal workflows and automations to ensure changes are made and tracked and have a record of all those changes attached. We're going to have a description of how the version control works. This is something which is easy to gloss over when you are working in Zapier, Integromat, or something like Tray. We're going to have the update type, description, the version, an example here of growth, add to circle 1.2, blah blah. The decimals represent whether it's a major update, a patch, or a minor update, hence the update, major update 1, patch 1, minor update 0. Definitions, major, new version of the workflow, whether you're deprecating the old one, either complete refactor or starting afresh. Minor, added some logic, added steps, or replaced an existing connector. A patch is fixing an error or path that's wrong. In the actual log itself, we're going to have a category, which is going to be depending on your business, obviously. You're going to have the name of the automation, you're going to have the status, the latest release, and the owner. And if we open this up as a page, we're going to have a log of the actual Zap itself. So we're going to have the automation link, we have a category, the latest release, the status, the owner, the workflow that this sits in, the tools used, any tags that are needed, and then the platform that the Zap's built on, or the automation or workflow is built on. Scrolling down, we'll have a summary of the automation itself, why it's used, and how it works. You're going to have the requirements over to the right and any known limitations of that workflow as well. This is going to be very useful if you're looking to improve workflows in the future. So what we'll do, just going to show you how to lay this out. So this is basically a simple page in Notion with a title, some text, and then down here, this is actually just an inline table. So if you don't know how to add an inline table, type slash, go down to your database, and that's table inline. So now we've seen how this is actually laid out. If you're familiar with Notion, how to lay out pages in full width and create your inline tables, then you can just freeze this here and copy this one for yourself if you find it's useful. But for the purposes of the tutorial, let's go and recreate this from scratch. So we're going to add this to private pages. We're going to open this as a page. Just going to copy this and go and create a new page in Notion. Add this as the description. And I call it automations and workflow tracking lesson. Okay, so when you create a new page, it will pop up like this. It'll be narrow, it'll be in the middle of your screen. If you open it as a page, it will open it as the main window that you can see. But you can see this is narrower than we had before. So if you go to the top right hand corner and press these three dots and toggle on full width, this will make your page a lot wider. You've got a lot more room to play with. I've just copied the text in for the sake of speed, but you can see the similar sort of layout. This is just some bold text, some unbold text, etc. Now if we go underneath where we've actually copied this in, we want to add an inline table. So with Notion, you type slash for commands. I'm going to look for a table. The first result we can see is table inline. Create a table inline in this page. We're going to select this and give our table a name. Call it all workflows. By default, Notion gives us some headers, or whatever you want to call it, field names or column names. I know each platform gives them a different description. We have name, tags, and files. Let's move tags to the first step by clicking and dragging. And we're going to use this as our categories. So let's go ahead and rename it. Click on tags and rename it to category. Clicking on it again, you can see this property type is a multi-select. If you hover over this, we're going to give it a single select or just a select. And the use case for this one, we're going to actually give it a lesson because at Makerpad we create lessons. We're going to rename this one to automation name. In the next column, we're going to change this field from files to another select field, and we're going to rename it to status. Some example statuses could be live, needs review, draft. Okay. Notice if you add these in any column, they'll be available for you in the column you select. Here we go. I'm going to add another field. I'm going to call this last release. This property type is going to be a date. This will keep track of actually when the Zap, the automation of the workflow has been updated. I'm just going to include a dummy date here, Friday, the shipping day. Then we're going to add another property, and it's going to be the person. So this is going to be the person who's responsible for this Zap. So this is going to be the owner. Okay, now we've got this, let's just space these out a bit more. The automation name and description with the naming conventions above is going to take up slightly more room. And now we have this, let's go ahead and create this for a workflow that we have in Makerpad. So I'm just going to tab over to this other desktop here. So we have this multi-step Zap, which basically takes any new lesson that's uploaded to Airtable, goes to Bannerbear and creates a share image, updates that record in Airtable, and then updates the live item in Webflow. So let's actually log this in our new table. So the automation name is, according to our version control, we're going to start with the update type. This is going to be education. Description is new lesson creates a share image in Bannerbear. Of course, you can be as descriptive as you want. You may want to just say new lesson creates a share image in Bannerbear. Then we're going to add our version. So we're going to call this version 1.1.0. Okay, so every time you come back to this, maybe you need to update it or fix something, depending on the type of change, if it's a major change, a minor, or a patch, you would then go ahead and change this number, set the version to myself, and then we're ready to jump into it. So let's open up our automation, and we're going to add some info in there now. Open this as a page. Now we've opened up, you see that we have some fields at the top and some empty space down below. We want to actually populate this with some useful information. Some things that are going to be useful are going to be the automation link. Property type is going to be a URL. So it's going to be the very first thing we have. We have the category. We have the last release, the status, the owner. Now let's add something else. This is going to be called the workflow org. This is where your workflow sits within the business. Again, this is going to be a select field. I'm going to type operations. Next one is going to be tools. This is going to be a multi-select field, as there might be more than one. Let's add a couple here. In this case, we use Airtable, Webflow, and Bannerbear. If you want to change the colors to these, click on the 3 red dots, change the colors. Webflow needs to be blue, obviously. And Bannerbear could be yellow as well. Let's make Airtable orange. Okay, now you've added the tools. Next is going to be tags. I'm going to tag this share image. Easily searchable. And then finally we're going to have the platform. If you're using multiple automation platforms, it's good to keep track of what's using which. This is going to be a select field again, and in this case it's Zapier. Okay, so that gives us a little bit more structure around information that we could see quickly if we're actually looking in on this automation. Let's go and grab the automation link, open Zapier back up, go into your Zap, click share, and then you'll find the link here. Copy it and then paste it into the top field. Cool. Now in the bottom here, let's go ahead and create a template. So this means that every time you create a new log of an automation or workflow, you can use the same template to populate your information. Create a new template and we'll call it new automation workflow. Okay, see it's grabbed all the fields that we had before already here. You use H1 by doing /H1. I'm going to call this summary. Drop down a couple of lines, add a H2 heading, and we're going to call this known limitations. Dropping down again, it's H3, and we're going to call this requirements. Okay, once you've done that, you can close out of it or press back, and you can see down here we have a template saved called new automation workflow. Let's go ahead and select this and see it populates this for us. Now to write a summary. This is always a good way of helping other people understand your automations or workflow, maybe other team members, which may need to look in just to see how something works, because it's easy enough for you to understand it, but sharing that with everybody else is essential. So let's write a summary. This automation. Now we have a really brief summary. Let's go and actually create a workflow overview. I'm going to use a toggle list for this one. I'm going to call it workflow overview. This is where you can kind of go into a bit more detail of your workflow. If we toggle that, we can now write it under this toggle. This means that if you already know what it is, you can kind of hide this. But if you don't, it's always good to show. And let's go ahead and write this overview. Okay, so now we've got a bit more of an in-depth overview. Now let's move on to any known limitations. Limitations are currently there is an intermediate step which could be removed in the future. Okay, we have known limitations now, and then any requirements. Again, /list is going to give us a bulleted list, and the requirements for this are going to be Bannerbear template, Bannerbear lesson template, Webflow lesson CMS items. Okay, and there we have it, a bit of like an overview of our automation here. And let's say somebody actually went in to update this. Maybe we wanted to update a piece of the Zap. So let's say we got an error. We can kind of go in. We can open the Zap up. We can change this to 1.1.1. The latest release to today. And then we can add a comment. Okay, there we go. This is like an easy way to log changes. You can go into more detail, you can have conversations with different team members, and then obviously you can change the amount of info that you show in this table also. So if you want a really high level overview, you can just have the category, the automation name, the status, last release, and owner. But then if you wanted to get into more detail, you can include some of the other fields we entered into the page when we open it up. If you want to hide these fields, what you have to do is go over to the three dots, the options above your table, go to properties, and then turn off any ones that you don't want to see. Okay, and there we have it. Hopefully that feels like a good and useful way to track automations and workflows within Notion, and Notion is actually quite a good fit to be able to do it in. Let me know how you get on and if this is going to be useful for your startup, business, company, etc. And yeah, show me what you make. See you later. Bye.